Welcome to Marketing People Love. My name is Jacques Spitzer, and today I have the pleasure of talking to Kelley. He is one of the founders of Tiege Hanley. They are a men's skincare brand that has grown by tens of millions of dollars by doing things right, creating not only the right product, but the right messaging to reach people. And he's going to share a little bit, not only about their journey, but answer one of the biggest questions I think I've ever heard, which is, would I go back in time and take $5 or $10 million in investment, or have one of my celebrity and influencer partners instead? Like, which one would I take? I thought I was holding my breath before he answered which one, and I cannot believe what he had to say. So you got to stick around for that. And they are a men's skincare brand, which I think is one of the more interesting categories because it continues to grow. And I'll share a little bit about why, ecologically, I think that's happening. And I will tell you, it is an answer that will have you thinking, especially if you're a man and you spend any time talking to anybody online. All right, Kelley, welcome to Marketing People Love.
Thanks for having me. Can't wait to talk to you.
So one of the things that we connected over, and I've come to learn about you, is that, everyone who's founded a brand, has a different way of doing it. Some people are really, really strong in, like, maybe they have a finance or M&A background. Some people are like product brand people, right? Like, people from a variety of different backgrounds. And one of the things I appreciate about you is I can tell you're a very active learner, right?
Right.
You're someone who consumes a lot. And so I'd love to, you've been on this journey with your brand. I'd love to understand, what do you feel like you have been diving into and learning over the course of growing the brand?
Yeah, well, so we all, this is what you and I were talking about last time we saw each other face to face. We all have, kind of strengths and weaknesses, and you can kind of tell, I think, if you're students, like I think you and I both are, of brands, you can kind of tell where the founder is kind of what the brand is like, and what that obviously reflects in the founder. So it kind of you can kind of have a sense for the personality of the brand and what the founders are really good at. Paul Tran at Manscaped, he's a really, really empathetic, kind of funny, nice guy. And that's kind of how the brand is. I think I see that in the brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about Michael Dubin, he's a really funny guy. And I think that that kind of resonated through the brand. Other people said he wasn't the nicest guy. I'm not sure, if that came through in the brand.
I never met him.
Yeah,
we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. We're nice guys.
I've never met him either.
So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
He's a successful business guy, so that's.
Yeah.
He's got that. So I think the answer to your question, I'm pretty broad. So I go very broad on a lot of things. I have a very solid background on operations, manufacturing, logistics, all that stuff. So we do all of our own fulfillment and distribution in-house.
Yeah.
We go deep into owning our own formulas and having the chemistry, the understanding of the chemistry. So all that stuff. And then most of us in digital marketing didn't study that in school or anything. And I had a sales background for 18 years. So I wasn't a digital marketer per se. I had owned other businesses, so I've been a successful operator of businesses. Yep. So that and everybody that's an operator, founder operator, understands that's negotiating and hiring people and dealing with lawyers and trademarks and everything, right? And then hopefully having some financial acumen, so reading P&Ls and managing cash flow. So I had all that, practical experience. And so that's why I think I think that we, at Tiege Hanley, we have a very solid business. So our business is fundamentally very strong. And we've remained self-funded, and we've grown the business for 8 years without outside capital. And that's just kind of, speaks to the kind of way I think about the business.
So I'd love your response or reaction to this. You all have seen a lot of success with the brand, and I would imagine you're still feeling like you're just getting started, just from our conversation we're having. And part of that, right, is how much people are resonating with the product and with the brand. And the reason I keep separating product and brand, is where my question goes, is I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that think to themselves, if my product's good enough, everything else will work. What is your reaction or response to that idiom and that type of logic and like that when you see it online? And I feel like I almost already know the answer just looking at the fact that you have like a custom background behind you with your with your brand. Would love to hear what you'd respond to with that.
You know, it's interesting. I'm going to quote my chief product officer, Fadi Murad, who has been with us for years and has an extensive background, worked for Michael Dubin at some point, Dollar Shave and Estee Lauder. He quotes Leonard Lauder from Estee Lauder all the time. You know, we're skincare, right? So, and he says like, you know, good brand and good sales can sell any product at least one time, but having great product will have customers come back. So, you know, so I think it's like, you know, it's a delicate balance. We would not have a strong company if we didn't have really good product. I mean, you know, we just wouldn't. So we have really good product, and I believe in it. And by the way, I don't think everybody's like that. I know the owner of a hair care company, and it's a successful hair care company. He doesn't own anything. Like he has no formulation.
Everything outsourced, manufacturing. He's just bottling some,
But he doesn't care. He doesn't care about it. He really just cares about selling. So I think, you know, for me, the answer is you got to have both. I mean, you've got to be really good at marketing and brand building. And again, that's because the first question, right? This is like philosophy of building a business. I think you need to do everything really well. It just takes a long time. You have to do it brick by brick. So I think you have to have a great brand. You know, if you don't have a great brand, you're just like kind of like an Amazon aggregator company. You're just like an, you know, kind of like something that's being like a spatula or a spoon that's being sold on Amazon. And, you know, you can say it like works really well and it can be dishwashed and safe and stuff like that. But I don't know, what's really the value of that brand, you know? So you have to have both.
I actually love the way you answered that, because one of the biggest fallacies that people tend to fall into, myself included, we all do it, is this like binary thinking, this binary way of saying, well, this is more important than that, or, you know, this is the right way to do it. Like, you should build it in-house, you should outsource it, you should do this. And it's like, the answer is usually some form of but I will say that I think people would be probably shocked by how many great products are out there that just can't get any momentum.
Yeah.
I think they'd be truly shocked.
I think it's more the norm. I had my last company, I had an advisor in my last company. It was a global retail design company called Purchase Point. And I had this advisor, Jordan Dolan, brilliant guy, successful entrepreneur, built and sold, you know, big companies. And he's like, you have like a beautiful steakhouse with no sign out front. It's like, you have a great product, you know, you guys do a good job, you provide an unbelievable service, and like nobody knows you're here. Like you're basically non-existent. And I think about that statement a lot. I mean, so and to what you were saying a second ago, you have to have a voice, and you have to have a voice in the market. And how do you create this voice, which I think is, you know, marketing people that people love, right? So you have to have the voice.
Yep. Well, I want to ask you about that voice, because I think what's interesting about men's skincare is that, you know, it's something that has been a growing category since you started in it, and you're helping to grow it, right? Truly, right. You're one of the pioneers almost in this men's skincare space. There are other brands or other brands that are also doing it well, but truly, you're one of the pioneers in it. It is continuing to grow. I have some theories on why, which I'll share later on, but it's continuing to grow. And I think I'd be very curious to understand how you feel like you all have grown in your marketing over the course of that journey. Maybe like where you started And then as much as you're comfortable sharing where that's evolved to today, because a lot of people have to find their voice.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Yeah. I want to answer the question directly. I just want to mention something to you and everybody's listening, because you just mentioned that a lot of people, have great products and so I was seeing some stats, and I posted something last week to my LinkedIn. Do you know that 99%, and these are government stats that I'm quoting right now, 99% of businesses in America are considered small businesses. 99%. They employ 50% of the entire U.S. workforce. So small businesses, only 1% of businesses, and actually if you include government, only like 1% of businesses are these massive employers that employ. So most people out there, and then most people of those 99%, a huge majority, like 70, 80% of those people, they're like sole proprietor companies. And only a very small fraction of those make it to $1 million in revenue. So we're talking about 99% of companies in America. A very small percent make it to, I think it's like 5% make it to $1 million.
I'm very aware of these stats, because sometimes I look at them just to make myself feel better.
Well, this is all relative. I think like we need to understand what we're talking about here and the question that you're asking. And only 0.04% make it to $10 million in annual revenue. So we're really talking about it's a very challenging question that you're asking. And it's very, 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 very few companies that grow to 10 million, to 40. It's 0.04%.
Yeah, statistically, it just gets smaller and smaller.
So how do you have a voice in this market? And I think for us early on, I took the route of bringing a partner on board who had a voice in the male grooming place. Aaron Marino, been a phenomenal business partner of mine, and he has a huge voice on YouTube. He's been on Shark Tank a couple times for other businesses, not Tiege Hanley, and he really helped us in two ways. One is he helped us grow initially very quickly through his audience and his reputation. And that was, that was phenomenal. And then the second way he helped us is he helped us become experts in influencer marketing, because he himself was an influencer. It was kind of like this whole inside ecosystem about how, and so that was how we were able to create a voice in the market. Awesome. The only thing with that is that only, goes you so far. It only gets you so far.
But it is, two things from the outside looking in that's super important there is, one, you had a sales channel that you had an unfair advantage in to begin with, right? A sales channel meaning a way of, that's an unfair advantage that most people wouldn't have. Like if you didn't have that partner, you wouldn't have that situation. And then two, you also happen to start a channel where you're getting a lot of feedback loop from people using it, talking about it. How are they talking about it? And so I'm so curious to hear how you start, because at some point, other people can become your voice as the brand, but it's important to have your own voice. So I'm curious how you have brought that back together and expanded beyond that initial influence. Very interesting.
So Aaron's voice, Aaron's things that led Aaron to be successful, I think all of that is inculcated into our business. The tone, the voice, the way, the specific attributes of kind of Aaron and the way he talks. And I that's part of who we are as a company. So, and I think that, like I said, it really did enable us to reach a huge audience, and it enabled us to get to connect with other people that had influence. It taught us how to work in that space, that particular channel. And, I think that was very, very, very fortunate for us. But by the way, it wasn't without a cost, right? Aaron is a very significant owner in the business, and so he paid his reputation and what he built. He was paid in equity for it. So, and if I had a choice to do it all over again, if someone said that this is purely hypothetical, I'll give you $10,000 or 10 million, 10 large, whatever the number is, 5 large to found your business, or I'll give you Aaron. for the same percentage, for 5 million for whatever percent, or Aaron for the same, percent of the company of equity, which would you rather do? And I would definitely take Aaron over, whatever the number is, 5 large or something like that. I'm sure there's a point.
Yeah.
But my point is that a lot of people raise money, but then they have to go out and buy a voice.
Not only buy a voice, but then they buy a voice who isn't intrinsically as, invested, literally, and it's like that shows through. I don't want to call out anybody because I just feel like it. I don't know. I don't like putting that stuff into the world, but I've been to a couple of celebrities' pages recently, where I'll go to their page and it's like every other post is just like them posing with the product, and it's just like so clear that they don't live and use and what the product. They're just like, and here it is, and here it is, and it's just like that just doesn't. People can feel it. I think they can genuinely feel it on the other end.
Definitely. When George Clooney, launched Casamigos, you kind of got the feeling that this guy just had a bottle of it with him wherever they were going, and it was just that he was drinking that stuff, and that was his lifestyle. But every brand since that's kind of launched has kind of lost a little bit of that, to the point where they are right now, where it's just posing with the product, and it's just not authentic.
Totally. Well, so you all have continued to build what you're doing, and I'm so curious because there's so many things. Let me put it this way: every brand has to figure out where their positioning is in the market, what's doing. But not only that, you're in a very odd, emerging really category isn't. It's somewhat foreign, and to a lot of men are getting into it maybe for the first time. And so my question to you is this: what are some of the things that you found to be surprising that you thought would work or you thought would connect that it seems as though men in particular just don't care about? And you might need a second to think about that, but I'm curious what that looked like.
I think actually you just said it a minute ago, because you think that people will talk about our brand, virality of people talking about brands that drive growth, right? Guys just aren't really. You mentioned it just a few minutes ago. Guys are not talking about their skincare brand. Those conversations just, so the concept of it, of referral being a super strong way to grow this business. It's not happening. It's just, men and women are very different, right? In so many ways, but women, will tend to say that's nice shoes.
Openly share their personal care.
Where did you get that? Or I love that shirt. It's, so cute. Where'd you find that? Or your skin looks amazing. It's guys are not having those conversations. So that was, I think we kind of had that hypothesis, but we really tried hard to see if we could make it kind of shareable amongst guys. It's just, that's not happening. So that was one. And the other thing is, I thought actually early on, my assumption was that it would be more for men that were older, 35 to 45. But this is 8 years ago, and that assumption was completely wrong. We were really connecting with a lot of young guys, and that was a really surprise. Part of it is with the channels that we're working with, we're on, that we're very digitally first. But I mean, that was really surprising. And we mentioned another brand who's a great competitor of ours earlier, and I think they're specifically looking at an older audience than we are. So and I think that has been a change over the last 8 years. I think there's I think there's more older guys.
There's such a shift. There's such an interesting sort of shift happening, and so here's my theory, and I'll be interested. I haven't shared this publicly with many people. This is my theory, which is when it comes to men's skincare, I think you have a generation of younger men who are growing up with the normalization of thinking about and talking about skincare, right? So there's a reality there. But when it comes to someone like myself, who's I'm close to being 40 and above, What happens is, like, you and I are talking right now, and if you're listening and not watching us online, like, we are talking to each other face to face. I can see my face right now, right?
That's right.
And I realize almost like biologically, I don't even know how to explain it, until the pandemic, until Zoom, really, I mean, you started this brand before both of those things.
Right.
I only saw it in the morning when I brushed my teeth and right before I went to bed. And to be honest, I wasn't paying that close attention. Anything about my face, what's on my face, any of it, right? And then all of a sudden, a drastic shift. Today, I will be on 6 hours of Zoom calls.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, and you can disable seeing your own face, but the reality is, like, we're all seeing our face way more. And all of a sudden you start to realize and notice, like, oh, I am getting older. I do have wrinkles. I do.
I think you're, I probably haven't thought of it as much as, about that as much as you mentioned. I mean, that's very, very apparent that everybody's seeing themselves all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. I mean, so that's, it's part of the digital culture that we live in. So, yeah, I mean, that I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. And it's not just, I think, like, we're talking about health a lot at Tiege Hanley. We're talking about the importance of health. We're just like skin health is, we try to play within our lane, but this whole culture of this digital culture, with the way you look, what you're wearing is much more prevalent. How much you weigh and everything is much more prevalent, right? Because you're always being looked at. So yeah, very, very good point. Good point.
I was like, if you were to chart how often I saw my face in my entire life, it just does this line of, like, barely any and then all the time. It's kind of crazy. I truly is jarring.
You
better
when
you think
yourself.
about it. I have luckily, I mean, personally, I have a lot of confidence, sure. But I will also say, like, I did start using skincare products, right?
Yep.
And part of that was my wife's very into skincare. She takes really good care of her skin. Frankly, she gets a lot of compliments on her skin and how much younger she looks than her age and all the things. And they're all true. And she was kind of like, look, it's your decision. Like, you can use products that are going to help the health of your skin, and you're exposing your skin to a lot of sun. And so she's been really big on pushing me towards everything from using more of a skincare routine, using more sunscreen. I mean, I always use sunscreen, but using more sunscreen. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm nowhere near. It's interesting when I think about the consumption of women, to your point, on skincare in general, like, not only the consumption, the habit of always wanting to try new things, even though they have something that works for them. Like, I've noticed that quite a bit. Whereas for me, I'm like, I just want to find what's going to work and then just, like, not mess with it.
Right.
And so, like, those consumption habits, the way they talk about, like, different genders talk about the products is really, really interesting. I mean,
very.
I'm sharing all this because I'm like, I would say that what's funny is this product is probably resonating most with men who are either very confident or men who are very unconfident. It's like, it's almost probably bifurcated because I'm like, I'm very confident and I'm using it because I'm like, I'm comfortable telling someone and I'm comfortable with it. There's probably other people that may be ashamed of using men's skincare for some reason.
Yeah, I think like more men are open to, talking about it. It's interesting, you mentioned your wife, and I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, and, like, her habits and how she's, engaging with brands and products and trying new things. My wife's the same way. We have really very, very good products, and we spend a ton of money making sure that our products have the best ingredients and our formulas are always updated. But my wife still will, like, buy Trader Joe's, exfoliating face scrub instead of using ours because she wants to try something different. And I'm like, it just makes no sense to me, but, she should be her. And, but yeah, I mean,
I will say, you just said something really interesting, and we encourage a lot of our brands. It's like, I've actually heard some of the bigger strategists call it share of shelf, which I appreciate because I'm like, sometimes we have this, like, zero sum mentality of, like, it's bad for our, it's bad for us to have our competitors succeed or something. And I'm like, actually, that's not true. Like, if they have a terrible experience with that category, then they'll probably never come back, or they'll be harder to bring back. Versus if they have a great experience, but they're curious to try something new, you're way better off if they're having good experiences with competitors. So I thought that was interesting when you said that, that like my wife wants to try other things. It's like, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just normal.
Not at all.
But for some reason, I think we get in our minds that like, oh, well, people closest to us will only use our product. Like even our own wives or our own husbands or our own fill in the blank, our best friends will always use our own product.
No, they won't. And, speaking of women, trying to engage their guys, like you described, I mean, that's also hard too. I think a male consumer, in my opinion, needs to want to engage with something in order to do it. Right. I mean, I can tell my son all the time, my daughters all the time, you need to go to the gym and stay healthy. But unless they're engaged in, and my daughter's been texting me, she's at Michigan State, and she's been texting me saying she's been going to yoga this semester, and I've been telling her she's a junior. I've been telling her the last 2 years to do some physical activity, but she's doing it because she wants to do it, and she wants to be in good shape. And that's the same for the male consumer as well. And it's definitely in our category.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think as you're eyeing the future.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I'm curious what is currently on your mind, because I could tell you're somebody who is, just from our first two conversations, you're somebody who's really thinking about what's coming, what's ahead, where you're going. What are you thinking about when it comes to the brand and the positioning for the future? Whether that's like channels or content, or I know it's a very broad question, but you strike me as someone who's being thoughtful about where to take the brand, and is curious what you're thinking about as it comes to marketing.
Well, it's an interesting question, because we are in all us DTC people that are listening. We're in an ever-changing business. Like this very dynamic, and certain channels are working really well at some times. Other channels are not working. I think we saw all these changes with Meta years ago. I think people started really thinking about influencer marketing. We've been in influencer marketing in a long time, but we haven't really, Meta wasn't really a big channel. Now we're kind of thinking about. So anyway, I think most companies out there are really thinking about brand building, in my opinion. And that's where my head is at big time, which we've been talking about the whole time. I think otherwise, what do you really have? I mean, so we're very good digital marketers. So I wouldn't say that we're, A+ digital marketers, but we're like B+, A- digital marketers. But it's really about the brand, right? It is about product. We've discussed that already, but you've got to have a really good, strong brand, to be successful for generations. And that's, in my opinion, you've also already said this, the wave is still forming on kind of like men's, skincare, and men thinking about taking care of themselves. It's definitely, the trend continues to go up and to the right for guys, in my opinion. And as a matter of fact, we men, and again, for your audience to know, Tiege Hanley is a men's skincare brand. So we're thinking about men, but we men, we've got a lot of challenges right now. I'm not talking about, that women don't have challenges or other people don't have. Of course they do. But men in general are really, we're really taking it. We've been kind of 50 years of really having kind of a hard time figuring out what exactly our roles are, and the way that society is looking at things, and and so that's really hard. And then with mental health issues that have come up again, guys are, unfortunately, suicide rates are the highest of all time. Anxiety, depression, it's harder to make a living than ever before. Houses are more expensive. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of challenges. And so we are trying to build a brand around, about helping guys feel good about themselves, and the small part that we play in that is really important to me. I mean, that is actually a really that is a strong purpose. It's not, I don't think I'm making it out to be bigger than it is. I mean, we're in the guy's bathroom. He's brushing his teeth, and hopefully he's washing his face with our products and putting a moisturizer on that has SPF in it. And he's feeling good about himself. And you mentioned earlier, you do get compliments about your skin. And, we just want guys to feel good about themselves, and and to have healthy routines in their lives.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. And we're focusing really on building a strong brand that communicates those principles.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I don't think that's crazy by any means. In fact, I think this is really, when I think about the men's skincare movement, I'm like, well, like what is it actually? Like, what are we really selling in any of that? And to me, it is self-care.
Right. That's right.
And everything you said there is like, it's kind of sad. The reality is it's kind of sad that self-care is not normal. Like if I were to tell my friends that I got a manicure, I got a massage, and I use, skincare every morning as part of my routine, like, does that strike you as, it's like one of those things where it's like, manly, right? And so
masculine.
Right. And so it's like the fact that self-care, like, because all those things I just mentioned are just self-care things. There's lots of things that we do for self-care. The fact that self-care is not something that people are not to say people, the broader society sees as comfortable with, and that includes, to your point, going to see a therapist,
right?
Things were around mental health. So I understood. That's what I'm trying to say. I understood fully what you were saying, where it's like all of the things that men need self-care, men need mental wellness, like we always have, but it's like everything has shifted, things have accelerated.
That's right.
Television, internet, like I said, seeing
everything.
My own face,
right? Yes,
7 hours a day on the screen. All of that is happening at a rate that like is absolutely crazy. And I fully understand where you were coming from with being part of that self-care solution,
right?
Because is it just about your skin looking and feeling a little better? No, it's more than that, right? It's like there's a lot of products that will functionally accomplish aspects of that. And so the experience that you have and the self-care that you have is actually the broader and bigger experience. Then even just like I always say, the work we did with Dr. Squatch, like watching them go, I just saw today, this public news, like I'm usually we don't talk about certain things, but it's like Reuters published it. They're seeking a $2 billion sale.
Yep.
Right now. And I'm like, when we met them, they're doing $3 million in sales. They're 6 years in. And I'm thinking to myself, people aren't buying this soap because it makes them cleaner. They're buying the soap because it makes them happy.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's like phenomenal story. I mean, it's
right?
just
like it's like we're selling happiness in the shower. And you know what? It actually does make you happier. Right. It's fun to use. It's fun. It's fun when it comes to the box. They got fun branding on it.
It's fun to be part of that whole thing.
Exactly. And so, just as much as I think that story is part of joy, I think that what you're doing is part of self-care and self-care around men. And I do think it's important.
Awesome.
Kelley, thanks for being on, man. This is it's always fun to talk to people who are such an avid learner of what's happening and always looking to be a step ahead, not just with advertising, but with the product itself.
Thanks. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kelley, for joining us today. That is another episode of Marketing People Love. And if you enjoy this content, learning about not only marketing people love, but the business behind the marketing that people love, I invite you to be part of this journey by subscribing and following along. Until next time, this is Jacques Spitzer signing off.